it's the image that's going to catch people's attention, and then it's the content that's going to convince them to act.
Correct. So it's got to be a healthy blend.
It has to be a healthy blend.
These are the basics. These are the basics right now.
The machine's telling you that this is converting really high, right? What the machine's not telling you, if that even freaking matters.
So you have to bid on things that people are actually searching for. All right. So this is the first official episode.
Right. Back to
of 2020.
Right.
Yes.
We are back.
All right. We're back. We're back in action. So this one's exciting. This one is like
This is my baby.
This is your baby.
This is my baby. It's my pet project.
This is, you crushed it on the project. And what are we talking about today?
Yes. So I decided to start looking into each generation. So like Zoomers, baby boomers, millennials, and kind of their impact on digital marketing as a whole, and then more specifically apartment marketing. And then I kind of made the conclusion that these generational characteristics, you can turn these into renter personas, just like you would do for buyer personas for an e-commerce website.
Sure.
And use it to basically inform your entire digital marketing strategy.
Cool. I like it. I like it. So not only is this something that you're passionate about, but here recently you created a nice little ebook.
I did, yeah.
So I'm excited to dive into that and see that, and I think that that's going to be really, really, really informative. To our customers, and then also to anybody that's needing some help with creating a strategic marketing strategy around their different generations.
Right.
So that's cool. Okay, so today we're talking about how to market to each generation. First thing, why is it important?
Yeah, so I mean, for a lot of communities, they kind of have an understanding of like their target demographics, but what they're not realizing is that for a lot of them, they're targeting a specific age group. It might be one or two generations. So they might be targeting Zoomers and millennials, and they don't realize that, or they're targeting, kind of older families like baby boomers or Gen X, and they don't realize that there's a lot of similarities between them. And then by understanding, kind of the characteristics of each generation, they could be, honing in on exactly where those generations are online.
Sure.
So, for example, kind of like my top example that I've been using is that baby boomers love Facebook.
Yeah.
Like they are on Facebook. They eat up the ads. They do all of it.
They're just clicking everywhere.
They're clicking everywhere. They're sharing it. they're commenting on ads and everything.
Uncle Tommy.
Tagging Uncle Tommy and little Betty Sue. But Zoomers, they're not on Facebook.
Okay.
They might go on there just to kind of glance over stuff, but they're not engaging. So why would you spend your marketing dollars there?
Sure. When
the majority of them are on the newer platforms like Snapchat, even like TikTok, which a lot of marketers don't even think twice about right now. But putting your ad spend and your attention on those channels and those mediums is a much better use of resources.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. No, I completely agree. And I think that, this was a big thing. I've always thought that this is important, and this is something that I learned, back in, my multifamily marketing days as an operator and as a marketer for Cortland was, I was first introduced there. Tim Hermling was my their executive vice president. He's still there. Shout out to Tim. And I just thought this was the coolest thing, like the segmentation and really crafting your marketing per that segmentation.
Right.
And then I think the first thing is understanding your segmentation. Like that's probably the first line of business in this industry is figuring out what your community attracts.
Right.
And,
exactly.
And who your customer is.
Right. And I think a lot of communities have at least a basic level sense of that, of kind of who their target is. But what they're not realizing is that they might be targeting an older community, more family-friendly community, but if they're coming out with like the latest and greatest in amenities, well, that crowd might not find that important. That might not be the things that are ultimately deciding are they going to lease or not.
Sure.
Where in reality, they might be more interested in a brand new playground.
Yeah.
Or more like family-friendly events opposed to, wine and cooking classes. It's being able to tailor to that. While those might be nice trending, cool things that might not necessarily be what your community needs.
What the mass is at your community.
Right.
And, I think a good thing to point out is that, sometimes you can't change what you got. You get what you get, and with your amenities and stuff. But one thing that you can control is how you market it,
right,
and how you advertise it, and how you reach, I guess that generation or that segmentation in your marketing. So,
right.
And I feel like we do a pretty good job at that by identifying that early on.
Right.
And but okay, so that's kind of why. Marketing differently towards them is important. So, what's the next thing? So, some specific apartment marketing techniques.
Yeah, so you can see more of this in the ebook that will be out by the time that this podcast comes out. But for each generation, it's kind of understanding just ultimately, one, where they are online, and then two, how you're getting that traffic to your site, or however you're getting, if it's a direct phone call or whatever it is, because, for the older generations like baby boomers, they're most likely to still respond to a billboard on the road.
Sure.
Or to drive past and, pull
more of the
in.
Traditional marketing.
Right. They're way more into traditional marketing. They do respond to some of the kind of new digital marketing, like we said, the Facebook ads, even LinkedIn ads, they respond to those. But then, like a Zoomer will never respond to a billboard. They'll see it. They won't process it at all. But like YouTube pre-roll ads, the ads that come up before a video, I mean, Zoomers are spending 2 to 3 hours a day just watching YouTube videos or video content.
Yeah.
And so putting your money and your efforts into developing videos would just be an incredible use of your time and resources.
Absolutely.
Especially because, they're stuck to watch a certain percentage of it. You can't force people to look at a billboard, but you can force them to watch a certain amount of your video before they can hit that skip ad button.
Absolutely. And it's funny how all these other advertising platforms, or I guess social platforms, are catching on to this. And,
right.
with Snapchat, what's a new one that I was on the other day? And I think it was Snapchat, where it's like really making you watch these. And it's pretty interesting.
Facebook
that
does too now. They
Yeah.
force it in the middle of the videos these days.
Yeah, it's crazy that everybody's kind of adopting that whole YouTube type thing. But that's where they get the majority of their revenue from.
Right.
Is advertising. So, so what about communities? This is always a hot topic. This is like, what if I have both? What if I don't know who they are? How do we market to? How do we, I guess, balance that blend?
Right.
And there's so many different variables. I don't have a huge budget. Like, where should I start?
Yeah. So kind of the big thing is just even sending out surveys about your current renters, just under the premise of trying to understand them more, so you can get an idea of, your age demographics, kind of asking them what amenities are they interested in, because eventually you'll start to see trends, because kind of like what you said, you're going to get what you get, and inevitably you've most likely created some type of average renter. While you will have outliers and things like that, you will have a base of people that have similar interests, similar backgrounds.
Yep.
And that's just an easy, free, cheap way to kind of get insight.
Sure.
Some other avenues are, looking at your social media, all of your accounts, to kind of see where they're coming in from. If you have Google Analytics set up, which you should, you can go and look on there. On your PPC or social media ads, all of these
management software system.
Right.
All this
these are all great channels that I think are kind of underused, maybe just because the sheer volume of the data that's accessible.
Yep.
But when you know exactly what you're looking for, if you're looking for your specific demographics, that's a really easy and quick way to kind of hone in, and starting out by just figuring out your average ages. And then the whole point of the ebook is just, without having to take deeper dives into all of those analytics and all of these surveys, you can start at the very least with like kind of generational characteristics.
Yeah.
And test and see how it goes from there.
Yeah. Totally agree. So let's talk about a little bit like the differences, in these generations or in these segmentations, and what they prioritize over the other.
Right. So I'll just start off with kind of Zoomers and work my way up. So Zoomers are the newest ones entering. They are still kind of in college, student housing. A few of them are kind of out into the world, so they're kind of the big group. But this is a group that fully intends on buying a house at some point.
Yeah.
So they're very into affordability and trying to make sure they're saving money towards, their house. They're more financially sound. Whereas you get into millennials, I can't remember the number off the top of my head. I remember it was in the 40s or 50% of millennials don't ever plan on buying a house.
Yeah.
They plan on renting for life, which is great for multifamily.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because they plan on renting for long periods of time, they're very interested in the lifestyle of the community. So, basic, simple amenities that are kind of standard and commonplace, like a pool or fitness center, aren't really enough for them. They want co-working, they want on-site restaurants, pet walkers. They kind of want the true live, work, everything
in one roof.
in one spot, right?
Yeah.
And then you get into your Gen Xers. They're the ones that were, really affected by, the Great Recession. So a lot of them were kind of forced into downsizing, or they don't have as much saved, then, they kind of want it at this point in their lives. And that's why a lot of them have turned back to renting. And then, of course, there's things like divorce and things like that are contributing to it. And then some people just like the ease of renting because home ownership is so expensive.
Yeah, it is.
So they kind of prioritize larger floor plans. They want, kind of that extra room because they have kids. They're most likely to have the kids under 18 years.
Yeah.
They're prioritizing, schools, parks, all of that in the local area. And then you get into...
I'm going to interrupt you super quick.
Go for it.
Just want to let you guys know, there's data and information backing all of this within your ebook. And
all of it.
I'm sorry to keep plugging the ebook, but but
I didn't make it up.
But it really does provide a lot of clarity and statistical information that supports this. So you've spent the past year really diving into this whole topic and doing a lot of research. But back to you.
No problem. And then the last one that we'll cover is kind of like baby boomers. They're the ones that, for the majority, they go back to renting because they don't want to deal with home ownership anymore. It's expensive. It's time consuming. They kind of just want to enjoy. Kids are out of the house. They have grandkids and
finally ready to enjoy life.
Yep, they're ready to party.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're retired. They're not dead. They are here for the party. So they're interested in storage space because they have a whole lifetime of stuff that they've collected, and they're interested kind of in the large community amenities like being able to rent out a clubhouse or something like that. Parking is very big for them. Accessibility as they get older is very important. So those are kind of like the top things for each group that they're all interested in.
Cool. I completely agree with you. So I had active living, senior housing, and the biggest competitor with apartments is their own home. Is getting them out of their own home.
Right.
Because they're so comfortable. But once you get that, if you're able to hit kind of all of these different points that their objections,
right?
It's storage, safety, being able to host,
right?
having that ability, all those things. That's when the walls come down, and that's when they're really open and comfortable to it. So, nice. So what else on here that you think is super important for marketing to each generation? I think we've got values and preferences of each generation are different. Let's touch on that a little bit more, or we can hit the next topic.
Yeah, so part of what I'll go into more detail in the ebook, and I could literally talk for probably 3 hours on it, is that understanding kind of the most important things and like what kind of motivates them to either consume media or to make purchases or to not make purchases are really important for each generation. Kind of like I hit earlier, each generation has different types of issues and concerns. For Zoomers, they saw their parents, Gen Xers, affected by the Great Recession, so they're very into saving, whereas millennials, they'll spend it. They don't ever plan on having savings. They're kind of pessimistic when it comes to finances, but that's really important in how people will decide whether to lease or not. Because if Zoomers are, focused on affordability and kind of the value of rent and, the whole lifestyle that the community offers, the whole price tag of renting there has to be worth it to them.
Sure.
Whereas millennials might spend a bit more if between community A that has tons of events and has a co-working space and has all of this stuff, a pet walker, all this, versus community B down the road that's $500 less, but doesn't have any of those those lifestyle
Like
things that they
services
want.
type of deal.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
Do
understanding.
you think we're going to see a shift in that? Like that we're going to see a huge shift once people do, really, and there are companies that are doing this well, and they're understanding their resident base, and they're kind of shifting. I see it happening, where they're kind of shifting more from an amenity-based marketing strategy to more of a service-based, where they're providing those services that I guess that segmentation wants.
No, it's going to be huge, especially, if you just kind of look at every generation as a whole. You even have, 90-year-old grandmothers learning how to DoorDash, right?
Yeah.
So being able to have these services at their fingertips, while for definitely younger generations, it's going to be a standard, not kind of a nice thing to have. It's going to become a standard.
Yeah.
Even for older generations, it's definitely a bonus. It's just making sure that those services are tailored to the community that you have.
Yep. Completely agree. And I think that, I don't know, it's kind of that holistic approach and overview to not just like the marketing side of things, but the whole life cycle and the whole, I guess, communication piece around it too, and a truly understanding how to, not only how to market to them, but how they want to communicate, and how they want to receive information. And this is something that I dove into a while ago with the senior housing, is like, why are people not like filling out these lead forms, responding to these lead forms, and there were specific fields and information that they felt comfortable with giving and not feeling comfortable with giving. And what we found at one community is like they still like we're reviewing the calls and everything, and can you send me more information to my address?
Right.
Can you send me a packet on it? Like having that physical feel. I'm
so glad you brought that up.
It's so important, and it's like, I don't want you sending me any more shit that I don't need. Like if I don't want any brochures. Send me a PDF, and I'm good. But them, having something physical to be able to have, maybe they fill out a form, and it's sending them a packet or something like that. So making sure you have an address field. But I just feel like that's something too that you have to really focus on within your marketing, what that follow-up looks like.
That is so important.
Communication looks like.
No, absolutely. Because, for example, Zoomers would probably rather die than talk on the phone to you.
Yeah, shoot me a text.
They're like chatbot or nothing, man.
Yeah.
This
chatbot does not tell me everything. And I'm out.
Yeah, they want a chatbot. They want minimal human communication because they want it instantly. They grew up in a world with literally instant information. So for them, a phone call is too slow.
It's crazy.
And then, millennials, they're very into texting or chat, like actual chats with a live person. On social media, on the website. Gen Xers are all about email because they're the ones that, even though millennials are working, Gen Xers are the ones who've been working for a long time. They've been using email for a long time, so they'll email, and they're looking at it all day. So why not be in their inbox?
True.
Right?
True.
And it's something that they can access even when they're with the kids, or it's not easy to take a phone call. It's very easy to look at an email while Becky's playing soccer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then for baby boomers, they're all about the personal touch. They'll come in and talk to you. They'll want a phone call. Even something that I've come across in my research is like handwritten letters to them. It's just that personal touch that they really appreciate and that they consider as a dying art form. But to them, they're like, wow. Blows their mind.
It still blows my mind when I get when I get letters and stuff or a postcard.
But when we get letters, we're probably like, who's this?
Like what bill do I have to pay now?
I know.
But no, I completely agree, and just making sure that you're taking that into consideration when you're really developing a strategy. It's all super important. So a thorough understanding of your current demographics in your community, will not only help with social media marketing, but also SEM. So I guess you want to dive in a little bit. I guess we'll take it back as in like social media marketing with this. So what's your thoughts on the social media marketing?
Yeah. So I think, a lot of us, kind of understand that like PPC and social media is important, but I think a lot of communities are still suffering as to where to put their attention and where to put, their time and efforts, because, making videos is not easy. It's not cheap. It usually requires, a special person to create those. And so it's hard to justify that when, when someone else, Dan in the office, is going to say, oh, well, PPC is, easy. We can get it up and running, right?
Yeah.
So, it's taking the time to like pay attention to where people are actually generating leads. And there is going to be a bit of testing with that. Unless, you're a really large company that has access to just unlimited amount of data, you probably don't have a good sense of what's the best converting one. Because just because people are looking at your ad and clicking on your ad, if they're not filling in the lead form, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Whether they're not your right audience, whether the lead, the landing page isn't good, the form, kind of like you said, if Zoomers are clicking on it and they don't want to put their phone number, well, they're never going to fill out the form.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
So those are all the things that you kind of have to take into consideration and test.
Along with the four P's.
Along with the four P's.
Price, promotion, people, product.
Right.
But that's where we come in, and we're able to identify, or your advertiser comes in, or your digital marketer, where you're able to identify those things. And,
right.
And that's just something that's a given. As a multifamily marketer, those are the things that you're looking at. But the things that we, about this diving into is really getting into the granular details of like what's gonna make that tick go up.
Yeah. And the other thing that's really important is that a lot of communities, they might have an understanding of what platform they should be on, but their content is very generic. 1 and 2 bedrooms near you in Atlanta. It's very generic. But if you're on Instagram, the pictures first off need to be Instagrammable.
Yeah.
They need to be stunning if you're advertising on Instagram, right? And then, so if you're on Instagram, you're most likely targeting Zoomers and millennials. Well, they might not want to see pictures of your kind of basic pool, or they want to see resident pictures of like people at your actual events having fun at your wine and cheese classes.
These better be pretty badass.
They better be pretty damn amazing.
Yeah. Like, you've got like 0.5 seconds to make that first impression.
Right.
So it's like,
and if your picture's good, they won't even realize it's an ad. They'll like it.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll just be like, "That's a dope place."
Yeah, that's a super super nice place, and
right.
And that just goes into a whole other side of like why creative is so important, why content is so important,
right.
why like you spend all this money on your asset, and like it's just
you got to show it off.
Yeah,
right.
and get that really really good photography, like, and just think, and this is something like. You just bought a home. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How many homes did you look at?
Probably 20, 30.
So, like, as in looked at on Zillow.
Oh, gosh. Like, a billion.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands of billions. It feels like a billion. And, you're going, that's the first thing that you're looking at. You might not even be looking at the price. You're just going through and you're just swiping.
You know what? I have the best example of this. The house we ended up buying, we initially said it was too expensive, but we saved the house on our Zillow search because we loved the picture of the outside.
Yeah.
It was such a nice picture. And then we had, after searching for a few months and missing out on some bids, we went back and there had been a price drop, and we saw this house 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And that picture stayed in our minds. And it was actually the house that we kind of unknowingly compared when we went to other houses.
To all the other ones.
Because when we went to that house, we went in, we were like, we're stupid. We should just come here to begin with. We knew it.
So, and that's why it's
right.
so important to have
it
that, like, it's
people.
just like the money shot of like, it's just that one that's going to stick out that really just, seals the deal on it. And I just can't get over like focus on that.
Right.
If all else fails, at least have really good.
And it goes back to, millennials and Zoomers and even Gen Xers are very visual. I mean, humans themselves are visual, but especially younger generations where we were fed everything visually.
Literally it's just content overload.
It is.
And it takes a lot.
And, it's the image that's going to catch people's attention, and then it's the content that's going to convince them to act.
Correct. So it's got to be a healthy blend.
It has to be a healthy blend. And knowing exactly what content and picture to do for that group is important, because what you're going to do for a Zoomer versus a Boomer is not going to be the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are your thoughts on this? Like, I'm just think at the end of the day, if all else fails, like from a social standpoint, like, I think that you need to have a decent little budget for social. But if all else fails, like retargeting.
Oh yeah.
Like that's just a no-brainer. You throw your pixel on the website.
Right.
Like that is the hottest traffic that you can get, and just staying relevant in today's,
Right.
super saturated markets, like stay relevant.
Right.
They came to your website.
Right. You caught their attention once, whether by accident or on purpose. And maybe you didn't convince them the first time. Maybe they weren't ready. But by putting that consistently, because again, we're visually driven, you see those visuals over and over again, you're more likely to act.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I looked at, as an example, so have you ever played the games on the iPhone, the little game pigeon? Don't do it. You won't get any work done. So game pigeon. So it's got like darts and all this stuff. And I looked at shoes on this website, and I love my Air Max 270s. And every single time I get on this game, and it's literally been for months,
Right.
they pop up, and I'm going to buy them.
Yep.
Like it's just a matter of time. I'm going to buy them just because it keeps it staying relevant. It's like, okay, I need you.
I know. It eventually convinces me to ignore the voice in my head that says, don't buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just finally do it. Right.
But if I never saw it, I'd be like, oh, I'm good without it.
Right.
But I see it every day.
Yep.
All right. So moving on to the SEM side of things. So Google Ads actually shows some, some deeper demographic information.
Right. So just kind of using the tools that are at your disposal. If you have an idea of your target generation, well, it does seem kind of like, well, why wouldn't we just target every age group? And why wouldn't we just, kind of get the whole area? But especially if you have limited funds and your community is going to appeal to a very specific demographic, why waste the time and energy there? Right. So use those tools at your disposal, use them strategically. You don't want to go too crazy. Of course, if you're not seeing really any traffic, you've probably gone a little too much. But then keeping that in mind, and then going back to that content, using the content that is going to resonate with them, and testing, if they're nuts for storage and security, then make sure you're hitting that, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Not just doing like the same content for every single ad.
And what about like fair housing too? Because that's a
top question.
That's a tough question.
That was my big thing in 2019.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is a great question, because I guarantee that people are watching this and they're like, oh well, hell, what about fair housing? No, that's not right. You can't do that and all this stuff. And there's always so many different views in what you can do, but you created a really, really good presentation and document around this. So what's your thoughts around?
I mean, this is kind of like the perfect solution to that problem, because especially as like a lot of you can't target on Facebook anymore, basically at all, really, for demographics. And this is your way to utilize content and your advertising mediums and your photography and all of the tools at your disposal to target without specifically targeting.
Yeah.
Because you're going to appeal to a certain group, and then all of these tools have the algorithms in place to show to similar audiences.
Sure.
To, people that would also be interested in this.
Yep.
So when you do it correctly, you're going to use every tool at your disposal in the best way possible.
Absolutely. Completely agree. And it's really just knowing and educating yourself. And that's, that's what we're paid to do.
Right.
Is to also provide a level of education and understanding, so that, we don't get our customers in trouble.
Well, it's complex too.
It's
a lot to consider, and sometimes it takes that kind of third party eye to look at it, because when you're in it every day and you're around, kind of in the nitty gritty of it, it's really hard to distinguish those like average characteristics or those trends or those patterns.
Yep.
So sometimes it really does help to have that kind of outside view into it.
And I also think too of like, you've got different, levers of this system, is where you do have a very good content copywriter, person that is working with the marketer, because sometimes the marketer is always so focused on driving leads. I need more leases. I need that, and you can be clouded by that, I guess, thing that you just need to drive more leads. But that's where we've created a pretty good system around what you can, what you can't do, what's good, what's not, what's going to get you in trouble. But they've done a really good job. Facebook has pretty much made it almost impossible to run into those issues now. But yeah. So what else do you have? You think anything else that you wanted to cover?
I don't want to give away all my secrets.
No, I agree. I agree. I think that everybody needs to go to our website, Repli 360, REPLI 360, and we have it on the homepage. And basically, just click to download, and or if you don't want to visit our website, reach out to us, comment, and then we'll send it to you. Just give us your email, we'll send it over to you. Maybe if you're a baby boomer and you want to read it, you want a copy, we'll mail it to you. So see, we do generational marketing.
Yeah, we take our own advice here.
So yeah, download the ebook. It's how many pages?
42
of solid content.
Solid content.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you joining us on this episode of Repli Talk. Next one, we're going to be doing
why you should prioritize websites this year.
Yes, exactly. So that's one of my favorites right here. I can't wait to do that one. And why your website should be a huge focus in 2020. So wrapping this up, go to the website, download the ebook, follow us, shoot us messages if you have any questions. We're here to help and support you. And we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thanks,
Siobhan. See you guys.